You ever realize in the middle of a conversation that you were never actually part of it? Like, they're saying words at you. Not to you, just narrating the next move in your life like it's already decided. You're the last to know, but first expected to act grateful. That was me, 2 Sundays ago. My name's Claire Whitman. I'm 30, a corporate risk analyst at a massive insurance firm in Seattle, one of those roles nobody outside of LinkedIn knows what it actually means, but the paycheck's real and I've got health insurance that actually covers therapy, so I keep showing up. Anyway, that Sunday was supposed to be normal. My mom hosts this monthly brunch thing at her house in Spokane. Family time, she calls it, but let's be honest, it's just a performance. My sister Jenna always shows up late, loud, and acting like she invented chaos. Dad's always on edge, like he'd rather be on a golf course in Florida. And me, I usually sit at the corner of the table and hope nobody asks me for money. This time, though, something felt off the second I walked in. Mom met me at the door with that overcompensating smile she wears when she's about to drop a bomb. "Oh, honey, you look tired. Are you sleeping okay? Still working too much?" I smiled. You know me. Which was code for "don't start." Jenna was already at the table, scrolling her phone like she was allergic to eye contact. She was in some baggy faux boho sweatshirt that probably cost $400 and had a smoothie bowl in front of her she hadn't touched. Dad didn't even get up, just grunted and waved from the couch, eyes locked on football. We got through brunch, quinoa something, plant-based bacon, too many fake smiles. I knew it was coming, just didn't know what shape it'd take. Then Mom folded her napkin like it was a PowerPoint clicker and said, "So, we've been talking." Cue the internal alarm bells. Jenna's had a really hard year, as you know. The sponsorships dried up, and the podcast launch didn't take off. That manager stole from her. It's just been nonstop. I nodded slowly. Right. She kept going. We think it's best if she takes some time to reset, somewhere grounded, supportive, somewhere stable. Stable? The word echoed like a punchline. Then Mom said the thing. So, she's going to stay with you for a little while, just until she gets her feet back under her. Just until. They always phrase it like that, like it's a cup of sugar, not your entire life. I glanced at Jenna. She didn't even flinch, just kept scrolling like her relocation had been finalized without her lifting a finger. Dad finally chimed in. It'll be good for you two to reconnect. Reconnect. I could have laughed, or screamed, or flipped the table and walked out. Instead, I smiled, like a goddamn assassin. Of course, I said, if it helps Jenna get back on her feet, I don't see why not. My mom blinked, surprised. Dad nodded, relieved. Jenna. She leaned back and smirked. What none of them knew was that I hadn't lived in that apartment in weeks. I'd moved out without telling anyone, sold the place quietly, new lease, new building, no forwarding address. I'd done it because I stopped feeling safe in my own space, because every time they texted, I braced like a bomb was about to go off in my living room. And I was done letting that happen. You don't get here overnight. It takes years of guilt-colored conversations, emotional IOUs, and being the family's go-to fixer. Being the one who could handle it meant I should. At 22, Jenna crashed my credit trying to buy herself a Jeep for business purposes. I co-signed because she swore this new content gig was going to change everything. She ghosted on the payments by month 3. At 24, Mom cried on the phone about losing the house after Dad's failed investment scheme. I wired $2,500, skipped a vacation I'd been planning for a year. They never brought it up again except when they wanted more. At 27, Jenna got a DUI, first one we knew about. Dad begged me to keep it quiet because she had partnerships in the works. I paid for the lawyer. She blamed the cop. No thanks, no accountability, just silence until the next ask. Every favor became a precedent. So I pulled back, not dramatically, just started saying, I'll think about it instead of yes. Dodged calls, changed the subject, got called cold more than once. You've always been the tough one. Claire, Mom said once, like it was a compliment, like emotional distance was something I built on purpose, not something I was cornered into. They never noticed how tired I was, how burned out, how I kept my apartment minimal because clutter made me anxious, how I avoided dating because I didn't trust anyone to need me for the right reasons. When I sold my condo, I didn't throw a party. I hired a real estate agent off Yelp, packed what I cared about into a rental van, and moved to a tiny third-floor unit in a building with keycard-only access. It was small, unassuming, and mine. I didn't tell them because they never asked. They didn't care where I lived, only what I could provide. The Monday after brunch, the texts started. We'll bring Jenna's stuff Friday. Can she use your Peloton? She's excited for a fresh start. Excited. That one almost got me. Friday rolled around. I went to work like normal, ate lunch with coworkers, laughed at a TikTok someone sent me. Afterward, I took a long walk through Pike Place, bought a $9 cookie, and turned my phone off. I was halfway through an audiobook when it started buzzing again. Voicemails. Texts. And finally, a call from Mom that I did answer because I knew exactly what was happening. Her voice was high-pitched panic. There's a man here, Claire. He says he lives at the condo, that you don't live there anymore. I let the silence stretch. You didn't tell us, she said, voice cracking. No, I said, I didn't. Mom's silence on the phone stretched just long enough to hear the chaos behind her dad barking at someone, Jenna saying something I couldn't make out, maybe yelling at the poor guy now living in what used to be my condo. Then her voice, sharp and controlled, snapped through. You moved, you sold the place and didn't tell us. I didn't think it mattered. I said, no one ever asked where I lived, only what I could give. There was a pause, like she didn't know if she should be offended or ashamed. She went with offended, obviously. You said she could move in. Claire, we planned everything around this. No, I said, keeping my voice flat, calm. I said, if it helps Jenna, I don't see why not. That was at brunch, in the condo I no longer live in, which none of you thought to check. More silence. And then, Jenna. This is so F*** it up. Claire, she snapped, you're seriously going to leave your sister homeless? Over what? A communication error? You could have just said no. I could have, but I didn't. Because they were never asking, they were assigning, and I was supposed to nod along like always. I didn't say that out loud, though, just said, good luck figuring it out, and ended the call. For the first time in my adult life, I didn't feel guilty. Just still. I knew they'd show up. I didn't know when, but I knew they would. My mom doesn't let things go, especially when they make her look bad in front of other people. It took 2 days. Sunday evening, someone buzzed my unit 3 times. I looked through the peephole before opening the door a crack. There they were. Nancy Mom with her arms crossed tight like armor, Tom Dad with that look like he couldn't believe he was dragged into this, and Jenna holding a suitcase with glittery stickers all over it like she was auditioning for an MTV reboot. You found me, I said flatly. Mom took a step forward, but I didn't move. We've been calling, she said. I know. We didn't think you'd actually do this. Do what move? Set a boundary. Choose myself for once. Jenna rolled her eyes. This is petty. Petty is showing up uninvited to a stranger's home and assuming it's still mine. I shot back. Tom spoke then, his voice low but hard. You said she could move in. We trusted you. And there it was, that word again. Trusted. They always threw it around like it was a favor I owed them, like they were handing me something instead of taking something from me. Every time. I stepped outside, shut the door behind me so they couldn't see the inside of my new place. I said if it helps, Jenna, I never set into this apartment. You assumed, that's on you. Jenna crossed her arms. You're my sister. And you've confused that with a free therapist, credit line, and emotional shock absorber. That's not what being a sister means. For a second, just a second, Jenna looked small. Then it passed. You always act so above it all, she hissed, but you're just cold, selfish. Mom nodded like they'd rehearsed it. You used to be kind, she said, eyes sharp. You used to care. I used to ignore myself to care for you. I said, that's not kindness, that's codependence. Tom looked like he wanted to step in but didn't know where. I was done. Look, I'm not doing this on my porch like it's a family drama special. You need to leave. I'm not opening this door again. Jenna narrowed her eyes. What are you gonna do? Call the cops. I didn't answer. I didn't have to. They left, eventually, not before slamming the elevator button 3 times and muttering just loud enough for the neighbor to hear, which I'm sure was the point. By Monday, it was a full campaign. I got a barrage of texts from people I hadn't heard from since high school. Hey girl, just heard about what happened. Praying for your family. Not my place, but maybe think about forgiveness. Family's everything. Don't let money ruin that. That one made me laugh. Like the issue was money and not being treated like a human cash machine with a pulse. Then came the Facebook post. A photo of Jenna as a toddler in a princess dress, holding a balloon, captioned, We raised both our daughters to love, support, and care for each other, but somehow only one of them remembers that. It breaks our hearts to be cast aside in our time of need. No judgment, just heartbreak. Dozens of likes, Aunt Maureen commented, You raised them right. Nancy, Jenna is so lucky to have you. I didn't respond. Not yet. That night, I sat on my couch with a cup of peppermint tea and opened a folder I'd labeled Receipts. Yeah, I kept receipts. I'm a risk analyst. I document everything. The $2,500 I sent them for the mortgage screenshot. The Jeep loan Jenna defaulted on screenshot with my name on the paperwork. The lawyer invoice from her DUI screenshot. The text Jenna sent me last year. You're such a robot. Claire, no wonder you're alone. Yeah, that one too. I didn't post them, not yet. I saved them, labeled everything, sat with it. Because revenge isn't loud, not the real kind. It's choosing to tell the truth when everyone else is still lying with a smile. Tuesday morning, I woke up to one more voicemail. It was Jenna. She sounded wrecked. Claire, I'm sorry. Okay, I was stressed. I thought you'd have my back. I know I'm not perfect, but I didn't think you'd actually leave me like this. I'm your sister. I listened twice. Not because I felt bad, but because for the first time ever, She sounded like she believed the consequences were real. I didn't delete it. I just didn't respond. Not yet. A few days after the voicemail, I got an email from HR. Subject profile feature request, women in risk leadership. Apparently, my manager had submitted my name for a company spotlight. They wanted to interview me about my work, my path, my resilience navigating adversity. At first, I thought, are you kidding? Like I wanted to be a poster child for emotional labor in business, casual. But then I thought, why not? So I did the interview. I didn't say anything specific, nothing petty, but I did talk about burnout, about being the strong one in families, about what it costs to be the one everyone leans on while pretending you're fine. And when it was published, it blew up. People from other departments I barely knew started sending me messages. Wow, I really needed this. Thank you for saying what I haven't figured out how to. You just described my entire 20s. It wasn't revenge, but it was something. A reclaiming. Meanwhile, my family went quiet. Suspiciously quiet, I figured they were either licking their wounds or planning another stunt. It was both. Saturday morning, I got a text from my cousin Emily. Hey, weird question. Did you agree to do a podcast with Jenna? She posted this trailer thing and tagged you. My stomach dropped. I opened Instagram. There it was, a graphic, no less the Whitman sisters' trauma, trust, Natha, and ties that bind. Hosted by Jenna and Claire Whitman. Two sisters, one rocky road, candid talks on healing, boundaries, and building back what matters most. I laughed, out loud, in my damn kitchen. This girl had lost her damn mind. There was even a promo video. Jenna speaking into a mic, all breathy and fake vulnerable, saying, people always see the surface, but our family, we've been through things. And it's time we talk about them. I watched it 3 times, not because it was good, because I couldn't believe the audacity. I hadn't said yes, hadn't signed anything, and definitely hadn't agreed to have my name or face plastered across some performative healing circus. I took a screenshot, sent it to a lawyer friend, asked, is this enough to shut it down? Her answer, absolutely. Want me to draft the letter? 5 hours later, Jenna got served with a cease and desist. Full legal tone, very clear. Remove my name, image, and any implication of my participation or prepare for consequences. She didn't respond to me. Of course not. She posted a heartfelt update instead. Sometimes, when we try to build bridges, others aren't ready. I'll be continuing the Whitman Sisters podcast solo because healing can't wait for permission. The comments were full of, so brave and you've got this, queen. But I knew better. And more importantly, so did she. Later that week, Dad called me. Not to yell. To warn me. She's spiraling. He said, she's saying you've cut her off emotionally, that you're trying to ruin her reputation. She's not okay. I let that sit. Then said, and what part of this are you taking responsibility for? He sighed. Don't do that. No, really, I said, because she didn't get this entitled alone. She learned it somewhere. I was just trying to keep the peace. By selling me out over and over, he was quiet. Then, softly, I didn't know how to stop it. I believed him, which made it worse. A few nights later, I met up with an old friend, Maya. She was in town for work, We hadn't talked much in years, but she'd seen the company feature and reached out. Over dinner, she said, "I don't want to pry, but you good?" I paused, then said, "I think I'm tired of pretending I'm not tired." She nodded. "That's real." Then, back in school, everyone said you had it all together. I always thought that must be lonely. It hit me harder than I expected. Not because it was mean, because it was true. Being together was just another mask, another way to be safe from being asked why I was always the one fixing things instead of breaking them. That weekend, I posted my own message. Not on Instagram, not on Facebook, LinkedIn. Just a thread, short and clean. Being the strong one in your family doesn't mean you're invincible. It just means people stop checking if you're okay. You can love your people and still walk away. You can set boundaries and still be kind. You can say no without explaining yourself. You don't owe anyone your peace. It got hundreds of reactions. Messages from people in other countries, coworkers, college friends. Even HR. The irony, I'd said less in that post than my family had said behind my back, but it hit harder. Because the truth doesn't need volume, just clarity. Then the twist. Jenna called me. Not texted. Not emailed. Called. It rang 4 times before I picked up. She sounded off. Not angry, not whiny. Just tired. I got the letter, she said. I know. I wasn't trying to. Yeah, you were, I said, but go on. Silence. Then, I thought if people saw us together, they'd take me more seriously. That maybe I could, fix things. With a fake podcast. With a plan, Claire, I needed something. I said nothing. She added, I thought if I could ride your reputation a little longer, maybe some of it would stick. And there it was. The thing I'd always known but never heard out loud. I don't hate you, I said. She sniffed. Cool way to start a sentence. I don't, but I also don't trust you, and I'm done paying the price for that. She exhaled like she'd been holding her breath since brunch. I'm not asking for money, she said. Good, I replied, because I don't have anything left to give. The call with Jenna ended weirdly quiet. No screaming, no dramatic hang-up. Just this odd, tired energy, like we both realized something had officially died between us. And maybe that was the first real moment of honesty we'd had in a decade. I didn't feel triumphant. Just clear? I didn't block her number, either. Not because I wanted to keep the door open, but because, for once, I wasn't afraid of what she'd say anymore. The next few days, she stayed off social media, probably licking her wounds. I didn't check. I didn't need to. But people sent me screenshots anyway. Hey, did you see Jenna deleted everything? Looks like her podcast launch party got canceled. Pretty sure she took her Venmo out of her bio. I said, cool, and went back to work. That Friday, I got called into a meeting with our VP, someone I'd never spoken more than 3 words to before. Thought I was in trouble for a minute, but nah, she just wanted to talk about the LinkedIn post. I read it 3 times. She said, tapping her phone, "You've got a voice. Claire, I hope you know that." I blinked. Thanks. No, seriously. She said, you put language to something a lot of us carry but don't have words for. That's leadership. I sat there like an idiot, stunned. No one had ever said that to me before. Not in my family, anyway. Leadership to them meant being the default fixer, the invisible spine. It didn't mean voice, it meant sacrifice. I walked home that night feeling taller, lighter. I made myself a drink bourbon over ice and sat on my balcony while the city hummed around me. Some guy below was playing guitar. It was bad, but charming. And I realized something. The silence in my apartment used to feel like loneliness. Now it felt like peace. No one texting me to solve their overdue rent, no one waiting for me to co-sign their chaos, no one spinning stories around me like I was some secondary character in their redemption arc. It was just me. And it was enough. Saturday morning, my mom emailed me. Not texted, not called, emailed. Subject line: you win. Honestly, I almost didn't open it. But curiosity won. The message was short. I hope you're happy. Jenna is devastated. Your father barely sleeps. This family is broken and you've made your point. I just hope one day you realize that burning bridges leaves you standing alone. No love, mom, no punctuation at the end. Just that. I read it twice, rolled my eyes, and then finally wrote back. Hi, Mom. I didn't burn the bridge. I just stopped letting you drive over it whenever you needed something. Claire. Sent it, closed the laptop, didn't look again. A week passed, nothing. Then something strange happened. My Aunt Dad's sister, who I hadn't spoken to in years, messaged me on Facebook. She said, "Hey, just wanted to say I read your post, and I saw the screenshots. I had no idea. None of us did. You always seemed like the one who had it easy. I get it now. I'm sorry." That made me pause. Because that was the first time someone in my extended family had said something without defending Jenna, or my mom, or making me feel like the villain in their Disney Channel drama. I thanked her, genuinely. She replied with, "If you're ever in Portland, dinner's on me." Small thing, but it hit. Not because I needed the dinner. Because it reminded me that some people can actually change. Some people, when given the full picture, stop assuming and start listening. What if **** in concept? Then came the final twist. I got a call from an unfamiliar number. At first, I let it go to voicemail, but something told me to check. It was a woman's voice, clear, professional, a bit urgent. "Hi Claire, my name is Dana Chavez. I'm a freelance writer with the Pacific Current. I'm doing a feature on personal financial trauma and family dynamics, and someone forwarded your LinkedIn thread. I'd love to speak with you, on or off the record, about your experience." I froze. Then played it again. It wasn't just a corporate blog this time. It was bigger, a real publication, real audience, real reach. At first, I panicked. Like, do I even want this kind of attention? Do I want to open that box? But then I remembered. Jenna had already opened it, just without my consent. So I called Dana back. We talked for 2 hours. She asked good questions. She listened, like really listened. She let me explain that it wasn't about one fight, or one incident, or one person. It was about years, a lifetime of being the responsible one, while the irresponsible ones got sympathy and excuses. I told her about the DUI, the car loan, the rent, the condo, the voicemail from mom. I even read her the email. She didn't interrupt. At the end, she said, "Claire, you're not alone. This is a bigger pattern than people realize. Thank you for saying the quiet part out loud. And that's when I knew it wasn't revenge anymore. It was release. The article went live a week later. It wasn't scandalous, it didn't name names, it was thoughtful, smart, nuanced, and it hit hard. People shared it, a lot. The comment section was full of folks telling their own stories. I thought I was crazy until I read this. Been the family scapegoat and the fixer? I'm exhausted. I've been Claire, I am Claire. Even some quiet coworkers messaged me privately. Some of them cried on Zoom the next time we spoke. And my inbox lit up. Not just with sympathy, with respect. That was the biggest shift. Not just being pitied, but seen as someone who stood up. Someone who said no more and meant it. I didn't hear from Jenna again. Not directly, anyway. But a mutual friend told me she moved to Miami, living with a guy she met on some coaching retreat, still chasing alignment and self-brand clarity or whatever the hell she calls it now. Part of me felt sorry, but not enough to undo any of it. Because here's the thing, I didn't set out to ruin Jenna, or Mom, or even Dad. I just stopped making myself available to be used. And that was enough. A few weeks passed. Life settled into something that felt quiet, in a good way. I'd go to work, hit the gym, make dinner in silence. No buzzing phone demanding something. No guilt texts. No fake emergencies disguised as updates. Just space. Mine. I started reading again. Sleeping better. I even started cooking, really cooking, not just nuking Trader Joe's in a bowl and calling it a night. It's wild how peace isn't some dramatic event. Sometimes it's just the absence of dread. But that stillness, it comes with echoes, and mine came from memories I hadn't touched in years. Like how, when I was 8, Jenna accidentally broke my lava lamp and blamed the dog. Or the time in high school when Mom read my journal and told me it was for my own safety. Or when Dad laughed during dinner while Jenna made fun of me for how serious I was all the time. Tiny moments that added up to something corrosive. It wasn't that they didn't love me. It's that their love was always conditional on me being useful. One night, I was cleaning out my closet when I found a shoebox I hadn't touched since the condo. It was full of birthday cards, notes from college, letters from when Jenna was in wellness treatment for 2 months and swore she was changing. One of them said, "I know I mess up a lot, but you've always been my anchor. You're the only reason I haven't drowned." Back then, I read that and cried. Now I saw it for what it was, flattery wrapped around an expectation. I didn't throw the box away. I just packed it tighter, sealed it, labeled it past, and shoved it into the back of the hall closet. Around the same time, I got a message from an old family friend, Debbie. Used to live down the street, one of those women who always had gossip and banana bread. She said, "Heard you were back in Spokane a few months ago. Your mom's been talking. Says you've adrifted, that she's heartbroken. Just wanted you to know not everyone sees it her way." I blinked at my phone. Not everyone sees it her way. That was new. I wrote back. "Thanks for saying that. It means more than you know." She replied with, "You're not the villain in this story. Claire, you just stopped playing the role they wrote for you." God damn. Then came the email. Jenna. Subject line, "One last thing." The whole message was 3 sentences. "I'm not asking for anything. I just wanted to say I get it now. You were never cold, you were tired. and I made you tired. I stared at it for a long time. No manipulation, no begging, no excuses. Just real. I didn't reply right away. I didn't know what to say. I didn't trust it yet, but I felt something shift. Not forgiveness, but understanding. Later that week, I visited a bookstore, one of those cozy ones with mismatched chairs and cats that sleep on the register. There was this girl behind the counter, college-aged. Maybe she had a stack of psychology books and a highlighter stuck behind her ear. We got to talking. She mentioned she was studying family systems. I laughed. That's a loaded subject. She smiled. Tell me about it. I'm the fixer in mine. Oldest daughter, classic. And just like that, we were in it. She told me about her parents' divorce, her little brother's drama, how she feels like she's the one holding everyone together, but no one checks on her. And I told her everything. Not all the details, but enough. She listened, eyes wide, then said, "Thank you. You're like what I hope I get to be one day." I blinked. You hope to be burned out and exiled. She laughed. No, I hope to be that free. That night, I stood on my balcony again. Same city hum, same bad guitar player down the block, same night breeze. But me, I was different. I wasn't waiting for the next text. I wasn't checking for damage. I wasn't stuck in hypervigilance, ready to apologize for things I didn't do. I was still whole. I decided to visit my dad. Not with fanfare, not with a speech planned, just to see what was left. I texted him. You around this weekend, just want to talk. No drama. He replied in under a minute. Always. He made tea. We sat on the back porch, no mom, just us. He looked older, not fragile but softened, like something in him finally gave up pretending. I read the article. He said, "Oh." He nodded, twice. I waited. Then he added, "You were right, about all of it." I didn't expect that, not from him. He kept going. I used to think keeping peace meant keeping quiet, but all it did was let the loudest person win every time. I swallowed hard. That wasn't always Mom. I know, he said, sometimes it was me. That hit. He looked at me, then said, I didn't protect you. I made you do that alone, and I'm sorry. And just like that, something cracked. Not in a painful way, in a necessary way, like finally opening a window in a room that's been stale for years. I needed to hear that, I said. I needed to say it, he replied. Before I left, he handed me something. A photo of me and him. I was maybe 10, sitting on his shoulders, laughing like I didn't know what betrayal was yet. You always deserved more than what we gave you, he said. I nodded, then walked away. Not angry, not triumphant, just done needing anything from people who couldn't give it. A month later, I was back in Seattle, walking through the farmer's market I used to avoid because it made me feel lonely. Now it just felt simple, familiar. I passed a stand selling handmade mugs. One caught my eye, matte black with white lettering. You don't owe anyone your silence. I bought it, cash, no second thought. Not because I needed another mug, but because sometimes The right words at the right time feel like armor. I drank coffee out of it the next morning, barefoot in my kitchen. Music low, phone silent. No drama, no fires to put out, no Jenna. It felt foreign. And earned. A week later, I got a text from Maya. She was in town again. Asked if I wanted to grab drinks. I said yes without thinking. We ended up at this rooftop bar with string lights and overpriced cocktails. Talked for hours. Caught up on everything and nothing. At one point she said, "You're glowing. Like actually glowing." I rolled my eyes. Please, that's just good lighting and 1.5 margaritas. No, she said, it's something else. Like, you're not carrying other people's weight anymore. And she was right. That's what it felt like. Like I'd been walking through life with a piano strapped to my back and finally, I'd put it down. On a random Tuesday, I got a letter in the mail. From Jenna. Actual letter, not a text, not an email, a whole-ass handwritten letter in purple ink on lined paper. No envelope drama, just her handwriting, soft and messy like always. She said she was in Miami, living in a shared apartment with 3 other women, working part-time at a bookstore, and trying to figure out what's real. She didn't ask for anything. She didn't guilt-trip me. She just said thank you. For not saving her, for finally stepping away, because when I did, she had to look at herself. And maybe that's what she needed more than another bailout. She signed it. Still your sister, just not your burden, Jay. I didn't cry. But I folded the letter carefully and tucked it into a drawer, behind the electric bill and an old birthday card from Maya that said, "Hot girl boundaries only." Because forgiveness isn't loud. Sometimes it's just putting something down and deciding not to pick it back up. I saw my mom again. Not on purpose. At the grocery store, Trader Joe's, of course. She was in the wine aisle. I turned a corner, and boom, there she was, her hand halfway to a bottle of Pinot Grigio, hair tighter than usual, eyes heavy. She saw me, froze. I didn't run, just gave a small nod. She stepped forward, cart abandoned. I braced. She looked at me like she was trying to read a page she'd skipped. Then said, "You look well." Thanks. Awkward pause, the air between us thick with everything unsaid. Finally, she added, "I wasn't kind, when it mattered." It wasn't an apology. But it was something. I didn't say it's okay, because it wasn't. I didn't say I forgive you, because I didn't, not yet. I just said, "I know," and walked away. That was the closure. Not a dramatic hug, not a teary confession. Just her, seeing me, and not having control over the narrative anymore. Later that night, I sat on my couch scrolling Zillow. Not because I wanted to move, but because I could. Because for the first time in years, the decisions in my life belonged to me. No silent contracts, no strings attached to guilt. No fake "we're a family" masks, now. Just me, my money, my space, my peace. I didn't click on anything. I just sat there, coffee in hand, watching the future unfold like a map I finally had permission to draw. The next morning, I walked past a mirror and didn't recognize myself right away. Not in a dramatic rom-com way. Just something subtle. My shoulders weren't clenched, My eyes weren't scanning for the next emotional grenade. I looked free. And that felt wild. Because when I started this whole mess, I thought the only way to win was to disappear, to cut ties, ghost the world, harden myself into someone untouchable. But that's not what happened. I stayed soft, just not available for misuse. I didn't vanish. I just rewrote the script. Here's the thing people don't tell you about walking away from your family. You mourn it like a death. Even when it's the right choice, even when it saves you, there's a part of you that still grieves what should have been. You grieve the mom who should have protected you, the dad who should have stepped up, the sister who should have grown with you, not used you. But then, slowly, you start to fill in those gaps yourself. You parent your own inner kid. You become the adult you needed. And somehow, that becomes enough. I started volunteering at a local community center, teaching financial literacy to teens and young adults who were where I'd once been trying to figure out how to survive without anyone to show them how. One girl asked me, "Why do you do this? Doesn't it get heavy?" And I said, "Yeah, but I'm not carrying my family's weight anymore, so I've got room." She smiled like she got it. Because she probably did. That weekend, I threw a tiny dinner party. 4 friends, 2 bottles of wine, a charcuterie board I learned how to pronounce last year. We laughed. We played dumb card games. Someone put on a playlist that was 90% Taylor Swift and no one complained. At the end of the night, as people left, one of them hugged me and said, "You've built something really special here." And I realized they didn't mean the apartment. They meant me. So yeah. This isn't some cinematic revenge plot where I rise from the ashes in a power suit and slam the door with a dramatic quote. It's messier than that. More human. I didn't ruin anyone. I didn't win anything. I just got tired of bleeding for people who kept handing me knives. And I stopped. That's it. That's the whole story. Story 2. Hi, I'm Cameron. And if you've ever had to smile through grief just to keep your job, this one's for you. Before we jump in, I'd love to know where you're watching from. Drop your city in the comments. Let's see how far this story reaches. Now, let's get into it. It all started with a funeral. My mother passed away on a Sunday, a quiet, dignified goodbye after months of fighting. We were close. She raised me and my younger brother on her own. No drama, just love and late-night talks over tea. She was the strongest woman I knew. So when she slipped away, I did what any daughter would do. I fell apart, then picked up the phone to request 4 days of bereavement leave. I had the emails, approved, no questions asked. But grief doesn't work on a schedule. By the time I returned to my office, a sleek open-floor space on the 10th floor of Halcyon Tech in Seattle, I was still aching, but steady, ready to rejoin my team, or so I thought. My boss, Kendall Lowe, called me into her glass office that morning. No warmth, just a clipped Cameron, shut the door. She didn't ask how I was, no condolences. Instead, she slid an envelope across the desk. "Effective immediately," she said, without blinking, "we're letting you go." I blinked, thought it was a sick joke. I had approved leave. Kendall tapped her keyboard, barely meeting my eyes. "Your absence during product launch was unacceptable. The timing was disruptive." I laughed a sharp, shocked sound. I lost my mother. She looked bored. Everyone loses someone eventually. That was the moment something inside me snapped, not out of rage, but clarity. This company, the one I gave 6 years of late nights, client wins, and personal sacrifice, didn't just fail me. It erased me. I didn't fight her, didn't sue. I packed my jade plant and my backup flash drives. My cubicle had been a second home. Full of personal touches, a photo of my team at our last retreat, a Women in Tech award, and a sticky note with my mom's handwriting that read, "Be the storm, not the breeze." I held it tight. As I left, no one said a word. It was like Kendall had cast a spell over the office. Until I reached the elevator, there stood Nick, lead UX designer, and my closest ally. His mouth fell open. "Cam, what happened?" I told him. He looked pale, then furious. "Kendall's lost it. You led the Zenith rollout. Without your pipeline, that launch doesn't even exist." He hugged me tight before the elevator closed. "I'm telling the team," he whispered. That night, grief wasn't what broke me. It was the email. Yes, that email. A forwarded message from someone inside Halcyon. No subject line, just a screenshot. It was from Kendall, the same boss who called my leave approved. She'd written to HR just days after my mom passed. "Cameron will be a problem, too emotional, replaceable." Those 3 words, too emotional, replaceable, hit harder than anything. I sat in my living room, holding my mom's teacup, shaking, not from sadness, from rage. This wasn't just cold. It was calculated. Within days, I was flooded with messages from former clients, confused partners, and shockingly half my team. Kendall was spiraling. The project she claimed I'd abandoned was crashing. Files were missing. Stakeholders were livid. She was throwing interns under the bus and demanding 12-hour days. And I just stayed quiet. Until something unexpected landed in my inbox. An offer. From a competitor. Radiant Systems, a newer firm I'd quietly admired, had caught wind of what happened. Their director of development, Mei Lu, had once shadowed me at a conference. Her email said, "I'm sorry for your loss. I saw what Halcyon did. Unforgivable. Let's talk. We need someone like you." But there was a catch. A non-compete clause buried in my Halcyon contract. 9 months, no similar industry roles, a leash around my neck, held by the very woman who humiliated me. It felt impossible. Until my inbox pinged again. "Nick, check the shared drive. Something's missing, and Kendall's lying." What he sent next shattered everything I thought I knew. Project files I'd worked on, code, research, proposals had been scrubbed after I left, replaced with incomplete versions, bug-ridden. And the kicker? Kendall had blamed me. Claimed I sabotaged the pipeline before leaving. That's when I stopped mourning quietly. I started documenting everything. To be continued. If you've ever been undervalued at work or worse, punished for being human, I see you. This story isn't just mine. It's for every person who's been told to smile through grief, to move on, to accept less. Drop A in the comments if you've ever had to rebuild from nothing. Let's grow something better together. I didn't sleep that night. My brain looped one thing over and over: Kendall faking system errors, scrubbing my work, and rewriting history so she wouldn't have to admit the truth. She couldn't do her job without me. And somehow, I was the one sitting jobless on my couch, sipping lukewarm tea out of my mother's favorite mug. By 6 a.m., I'd gone through every cloud backup, screenshot, and shared doc I had access to, Dates, timestamps, commit logs, all showing what I'd really done for Zenith before I left. My fingerprints were all over the build. Kendall's missing work wasn't missing. She'd deleted it. That morning, I met May from Radiant Systems at a small cafe near Pike Place Market. We sat near the window, overlooking early vendors setting up flowers and fish on ice. She didn't bother with pleasantries. I don't need an explanation. Cameron, I saw what you built at Halcyon. Her tone was kind but sharp. She slid a folder across the table. Here's the offer. Operations strategist. Reporting to me, competitive salary, full autonomy, and we'll fight your non-compete if needed. My heart thudded. It was everything I wanted, everything I deserved after years of bending backward for Halcyon. But I hesitated. What if they come after me? I asked, my voice low. May leaned back, eyes steady, then we burn them down legally. I smiled, not because I wanted war, but because I finally had someone on my side. Back home, I called my brother Theo. He was the quiet type, lived up north with his wife and 2 daughters, always ready with practical advice and a weird sense of calm. I told him everything: the firing, the offer from Radiant, the non-compete. He was silent for a beat. Then he said, "You need to stop letting people like Kendall define you. You know what Mom would say, right?" I did. I could hear her voice now. "You don't get to control the waves, baby, but you damn sure get to learn how to surf." That night, I drafted my timeline, everything I'd need to show a pattern of targeted behavior, my approved leave, the email firing me for taking it, the fake client complaint, the data Kendall deleted, all of it. But I was still missing something big, something I couldn't access alone. I called Nick. He answered on the first ring. "Cam, I need your help." I told him about the Radiant offer, the legal risks, the folder of evidence I was building. He listened silently. Then he said, "Meet me tomorrow. I've got something for you." We met at Gasworks Park, just before sunset. Windy, quiet, beautiful. The kind of place you go to breathe. Nick handed me a flash drive. No words. I plugged it into my laptop when I got home. It was an internal Slack export. Halcyon's team chats. One thread stood out. It was dated the same day my mom died. Kendall had posted, "Cameron just requested leave. Figures. Right before launch, I told her yes, but we'll see how she handles the pressure. I wouldn't be shocked if she cracks. She's emotional." I felt sick. She planned it. From the start. This wasn't negligence. It was calculated sabotage. She said yes, then waited to punish me for saying goodbye to my mother. I was done staying quiet. I emailed Amara Patel, an employment lawyer May had connected me to. The next day, we met in her office, a clean space with soft lighting and legal degrees lining the walls. She read everything I brought her: the Slack thread, the termination email, the client complaint Kendall faked, the project data I'd saved. When she finished, she looked up slowly. "This isn't just grounds to break your non-compete," she said. "This is retaliation, maybe even wrongful termination." I stared at her, my throat dry. "You could sue them." The idea hadn't even crossed my mind. I wasn't trying to win money. I wanted the truth to matter. Amara saw that in my face and added, "You don't have to, but you have options. And if they so much as breathe on Radiant with legal threats, we respond." I exhaled for what felt like the first time in a week. 2 days later, May called. "They tried it," she said flatly. Halcyon's legal sent us a cease and desist, claiming you stole proprietary data. I almost laughed. I was the data. She laughed too. Our lawyers are ready. You'll start Monday. Just like that, I had a job. But I wasn't done. I emailed Amara a list of contacts, 3 former Halcyon employees who left in the last year, all women, all in leadership roles, all pushed out under Kendall. Within a day, 2 replied. One of them, Priya, had left after being told to act less intense during strategy calls the same month she led a campaign that increased client retention by 40%. The other, Yvonne, had taken a severance after Kendall told her family emergencies shouldn't affect performance. Her husband had been in a motorcycle accident. A pattern was forming. Kendall wasn't just a bad manager. She was a liability. That weekend, Radiant's PR team reached out. We're pitching a spotlight article. They said, "Women in tech who rebuild stronger. Want to tell your story?" I hesitated. Not because I didn't have something to say, but because I wasn't sure I could say it without shaking. But then I remembered that Slack thread. The way Kendall erased my grief, tried to smear me, and replaced my contributions with lies. And I said yes. The article ran 2 weeks later on a major tech blog. It wasn't about revenge. It was about truth. About how grief isn't weakness. About how the corporate world needs to stop treating people like cogs. And about how I refuse to be erased. It went viral. My inbox exploded. Hundreds of messages, some from strangers who had also been punished for taking time off to bury a parent, others from former Halcyon employees I didn't even know. And one that made me sit still for a very long time. It was from Kendall. Just one line. "You don't know what you've started." She was wrong. I knew exactly what I'd started. I just wasn't done yet, 3 weeks into my new role at Radiant, and it already felt like another life. My office had real light, plants that thrived, and people who actually meant it when they asked, "How are you?" I led a team of 20, half of them women, and most shockingly, everyone seemed to want each other to succeed. It felt foreign, safe, almost too good to trust. But even as I tried to settle into this healthier world, Kendall's email kept replaying in my mind. "You don't know what you've started." She was right in one way. What I started hadn't stopped. The viral article had ripple effects. Messages kept coming in, women and men, engineers, project managers, even interns. Dozens had stories from Halcyon. Stories of sabotage, gaslighting, and silent exits no one ever questioned. I compiled them. With Amara's help, I anonymized the details and began building a quiet case. I wasn't planning a lawsuit, I was planning a pattern, one the board couldn't ignore. Then I got a LinkedIn message that made my stomach flip. It was from Halcyon's CFO, Nina Bird. "Cameron, I read the article. I'm sorry. Would you meet for coffee?" I stared at the message. Nina had always been a wild card, cool-headed, elusive. She'd never stood up for anyone outright, but she'd also never been one of Kendall's sycophants. I texted Amara, should I meet her? Her response was immediate, "Yes, but record everything." We met at a quiet bistro in Capitol Hill. Nina arrived in a navy trench coat, sunglasses tucked in her collar. She sat across from me and didn't waste time. "I didn't know the extent," she said, voice low, "not about your firing, but about the pattern. I've seen signs, but you connected the dots." I waited. I didn't trust her yet. She sipped her coffee, then added, I've worked at Halcyon for 12 years, watched it rot from the inside. Kendall's rise wasn't merit, it was protection. That got my attention. Protection from what I asked. Nina leaned closer. From the board, she has dirt, specifically on Daryl Linwood. The CEO? My chest tightened. What kind of dirt? She gave a humorless smile, enough to keep them scared of crossing her. But after your article, investors are spooked. I think the board is finally listening. So why come to me, I asked. Because you're the only one who actually fought back and won. I didn't feel like I'd won. Not yet, but I nodded. She slid an envelope across the table. Internal audit notes, not complete, but it'll help. And Cameron, be careful. If Kendall thinks you're coming for her, she'll hit back harder. As she stood to leave, I asked one last thing. Why now? Nina paused. My daughter just graduated college. She said she's applying for jobs in tech. I don't want her working in a world Kendall built. That night, I read every page of the audit notes. They were messy, half-redacted, incomplete, but damning. Over a dozen exits under Kendall's leadership tied to mental health claims, almost all of them women. Multiple HR complaints resolved without escalation, and expense reports that looked suspicious. I circled everything, took screenshots, organized them into a clean timeline. Then I called Amara. We've got enough, I said. She didn't ask what for, just said, I'll prep the documents. Radiant's leadership stood behind me every step. May brought in PR advisors. The legal team readied statements, and Victor calm, collected Victor simply said, we don't silence survivors. We support them. For the first time, I didn't feel like the problem. I felt like part of the solution. 2 weeks later, it all came to a head. A former Halcyon product manager, Darcy, agreed to go public. She'd been bullied by Kendall, pushed out after taking stress leave. Her story hit a tech blog just days after we submitted the full whistleblower file to Halcyon's board, with Amara as our legal anchor. The story caught fire. Again. This time, names were named. And then, everything cracked open. 3 Halcyon board members resigned within 48 hours. Daryl Linwood went on sabbatical, a polite euphemism for stepping down. Kendall. She disappeared. Her LinkedIn was wiped. Her Halcyon bio page went dark. Her name became a whisper in every meeting and a punchline in every private Slack thread. And yet, I didn't feel triumphant. I felt tired. Exposed. Like a glass finally emptied after holding too much for too long. Radiant offered a wellness week for me and my team. I didn't argue. I drove to the coast, stayed in a cabin, watched the ocean slam against rocks, and listened to waves whisper the kind of truths you only hear when everything's quiet. One morning, I stood barefoot in the sand with my phone in hand. I scrolled through the messages, survivors, allies, strangers who read my story and felt less alone. Then I found a voicemail from my brother. Hey, Cam, I just wanted to say I'm proud of you. Mom would be too. You didn't just survive this. You made it mean something. I sat down and cried for the first time in weeks. Not because I was sad, because I believed him. The Monday I returned, Radiant was buzzing. New contracts, media requests, quiet praise from big names in the industry. But the thing that meant the most, my team, every single one of them had stayed. Through the fire, the threats, the spotlight. I stood before them in the conference room. I don't know what happens next, I admitted, but I know I'm not afraid anymore. Jules, my newest hire, raised her coffee cup to not being afraid. And we all toasted, quietly, powerfully. I later learned that Halcyon's board issued an official apology. Investors had pulled out, the company was restructuring, slashing executive salaries, and trying to rebuild from the ashes. I didn't care. That chapter was over. I had nothing left to prove. But I had built something better, and that was the real victory. I didn't win by destroying Kendall. I won by refusing to be erased. 6 months after the article broke, I stood on stage at the Seattle Women in Tech conference, heart thudding in my chest. The room was packed. Not with recruiters or VCs, but with people who had felt what I felt: silenced, dismissed, overlooked, survivors of toxic leadership, the difficult ones, the emotional, the ones who dared to value empathy over ego. I stepped to the mic and exhaled. 6 months ago, I was fired for grieving my mother. A hush fell over the room. I didn't think I'd speak about it publicly. I thought I'd carry it quietly. But when I did speak, when I named it, I found something I didn't expect. Not just justice, but community. I paused. A woman in the front row wiped a tear from her cheek. I want to say this clearly: you are not too emotional. You are not too much. You're not imagining it, and you are not alone. Applause erupted, and for the first time, I didn't feel like I was performing. I felt like I was offering something real. A hand to grab in the dark. Back at Radiant, life had found a rhythm. Victor was named CEO after the board voted unanimously. May was promoted to Chief People Officer. I was serving as VP of Operations, and together we built a culture unlike any I'd seen. We implemented the industry's first grief leave policy, not a vague, HR-coded personal time, real language, real support. When my colleague Rashida lost her father, she took 10 days paid, no questions asked. When she returned, the team brought her meals for a week, and not one person made a joke about catching up. We weren't perfect, but we were trying, honestly, transparently. That mattered more than metrics. Jules, my newest team member, fresh out of grad school, stopped me one afternoon in the break room. "Hey, Cameron," she said, pouring coffee, "can I ask you something personal?" I smiled. "Sure." "You don't seem scared of power, but you don't chase it either. How did you find that balance?" I blinked. No one had ever asked me that before. Not like that. I leaned on the counter. I used to think being powerful meant being feared, but now I think it means being trusted. She nodded, thoughtful. That makes sense. And maybe that was the legacy I'd leave, not as the woman who brought down Halcyon, but as the leader who showed others they didn't have to become what broke them. Speaking of Halcyon, the company was still limping along. Kendall had vanished from the public eye entirely. Her former execs scattered across the industry like ghosts. Nina, the CFO who passed me the internal audit, left a month after her daughter got a job at Radiant. When we met again at a quiet cafe, she looked 10 years younger. "Thank you," she said softly, "for giving me a way out." "You gave me the match," I replied. "I just lit the fire." We toasted over ginger tea and didn't speak about the past again. It was behind us now. But healing didn't come all at once. Some nights, I still dreamed of my mother's funeral, the weight of the rain, the silence of her absence. I'd wake with my chest tight and the taste of shame in my mouth, shame that I had let Kendall's cruelty define that moment in my life. I talked about it in therapy, slowly, with effort. And one day, my therapist said something that stuck. Grief isn't a deadline, and neither is recovery. So I stopped measuring how far I'd come and started paying attention to how far I could go. Radiant was growing, faster than we expected. We signed new clients monthly. Our operations team broke record after record. Investors were knocking, but Victor was clear: culture comes first. We'd built something strong, human, and it was being noticed. I was invited to a private roundtable with leaders from the biggest names in tech, the same people who used to side-eye my ideas in conference rooms, who once called me too idealistic. Now they wanted to hear me speak. Now they were asking me for guidance. That felt surreal, but also earned. One evening, as I was leaving the office, my phone buzzed. A voicemail, unknown number. I played it, expecting spam. But it was a woman's voice. Cameron, I don't know if you remember me. It's Claire. I was a junior UX researcher at Halcyon. You spoke up for me when Kendall accused me of missing a deliverable I didn't own. My breath caught. I just got a lead role at a startup in Toronto. I saw your talk. It made me feel brave again. So, thank you for not forgetting us. She hung up. I stood in the parking lot, the voicemail replaying in my head. I had forgotten her name, but she hadn't forgotten my kindness. Maybe that was power too. 1 year later, we held Radiant's first internal leadership summit. Employees from around the country gathered in Portland. We rented a lakeside retreat, filled the weekend with workshops, bonfires, and stories. I gave a closing keynote. But this time, I didn't talk about grief or revenge. I talked about growth. Leadership isn't a title, I said. It's how you show up when no one's watching, when it's hard, when it's inconvenient, when someone needs you to stand between them and the fire. No applause followed, just silence. The kind of silence that means people are listening. Really listening. Afterward, Jules came up to me, eyes wide. That was, wow. I laughed. Just wait till you're the one giving the speech. She grinned. Someday. Then she handed me a tiny ceramic pot. A gift. Inside it, a baby jade plant. I figured your first one might be lonely, she said. I clutched it to my chest, my throat tight. Because this was legacy, not numbers, not titles, not headlines. But seeds. Growing something better. Together. I visited my mother's grave the next morning. The sky was clear, the breeze soft. I knelt beside the stone, jade plant in hand, and whispered the words I'd wanted to say for a year. You were right, Mom. Kindness isn't weakness, grief isn't failure, and the world only changes if someone refuses to stay quiet. I planted the jade beside her headstone. Its leaves caught the light. And I knew. Finally, I was home. Story 3. I'm Sky, 34. Live in a little apartment above a bike shop in Portland. I'm a freelance animator. And no, it's not as glamorous as people think. Coffee-fueled deadlines, client ghosting, feast or famine income, that's my normal. And for the past 5 years, I've been the unofficial sponsor of my older sister Tasha, her husband Marcus, and their 3 kids, Jaden, Mira, and baby Belle. I've sent them over $36,000, rent when Marcus's gig work fell through, school fees, ER bills when Belle had RSV, groceries, back to school stuff, you name it. Every time Tasha called with another crisis, I'd wire money. No questions, no lectures, because that's what family does, right? But lately, it's felt different. I'm not thanked. I'm not invited. I'm just expected, like I'm some magic cash dispenser in leggings. Still, I kept hoping, especially with Thanksgiving coming up. This year, I volunteered to host at Mom and Dad's place. I even told Tasha I'd handle the whole dinner. I started baking ahead, ordered a turkey, budgeted like crazy and still squeezed in gifts. Jaden's been drawing, so I got him a digital sketch pad. Mira's obsessed with baking, so a real stand mixer. Belle, a pink wooden dollhouse that cost more than my grocery bill for a month. I thought, maybe this year they'll see, not just the money, the effort. But here's the part where the air gets punched out of your lungs. 2 days before Thanksgiving, I get this short text from Mom Sky. Tasha's family wants something smaller this year. Just them. Please don't come. No explanation. Just like that. I thought it was a mistake. I called, straight to voicemail. I texted, "Is this a joke?" No reply. And then Tasha chimed in. "You need to stop inserting yourself into our lives. We don't want your pity. Stay away." I stared at that message so long I memorized the dots on the screen. All I could think was I bought those kids Christmas pajamas last year. I paid off their heating bill in January, and now I'm unwanted. I cried so hard my dog tried to crawl into my lap to comfort me. Still, like the idiot I sometimes am when it comes to family, I loaded all the gifts into the trunk of my beat-up Prius the next day, drove over to my parents' place on Thanksgiving Eve. It was snowing, the heavy Portland kind that slaps your windshield sideways. The house looked the same as always. Same wreath on the door, lights blinking in the window, but when I walked up, carrying bags full of wrapped boxes, the door opened and Mom stepped out like she'd been watching. She didn't smile. "Sky, Tasha asked us to keep this private. You need to go." I just stood there. I brought gifts. I said, my voice shaking, I made a pie. But then Tasha appeared behind her, arms crossed, smirking. "Do you not get it?" she said. "Cold as the wind. You're not part of this family anymore. You don't buy your way into belonging." I wanted to scream. Instead, I whispered, "I've paid your rent. I've fed your kids. You're a meddling control freak," she snapped. "We don't want your handouts." She turned and walked inside. Mom didn't look at me, just closed the door. That was it. I left the gifts on the porch, walked to my car in the dark, and sat behind the wheel for 20 minutes sobbing like a kid. When I got home, I opened my banking app. Not to make another transfer, just to stare. The total $36, $240. That's what I've given them since 2018. And suddenly, the phrase "you don't belong here" hit different. The days after Thanksgiving felt like static. Cold, gray, and too quiet. I worked in silence, no music, just the hum of my space heater and the echo of Tasha's words. You don't buy your way into belonging. She said it like I was some desperate outsider, like she hadn't come to me, crying when their landlord threatened eviction or when Bell's inhalers ran out. I had never needed thanks. I just didn't expect cruelty. My inbox had one new message. From Marcus, subject, "I'm sorry. Body Sky. I didn't want that to happen. I should have stood up to her. Please don't shut us out. I just wanted you to know I see what you've done." I stared at it. A sliver of humanity, but too little. Too late. I typed, "Thanks for saying that. I need time," and then I muted the thread. That night, I did something I hadn't done in years. I printed out all my transfer receipts. Every Venmo, every PayPal, every bank wire. I laid them out across my tiny kitchen table. It looked like I was preparing for a tax audit, except this audit was emotional. I color-coded them. Blue for medical. Green for rent. Yellow for education. Red for miscellaneous emergencies, which covered everything from groceries to surprise car repairs to we forgot Jaden's field trip money. $36,240. That was the final number. But then something odd caught my eye. A transfer I made for Belle's ER visit in April, $2,000, was followed by a matching outgoing transfer from Tasha's account to a name I didn't recognize, Luxol Wellness. I Googled it. It was a luxury spa resort. My stomach flipped. I dug deeper. Every time I sent Tasha money, there was a large cash withdrawal or a payment to something expensive, designer websites, gourmet meal kits, even concert tickets. My gut twisted. Was I being played? That night, I messaged Marcus again. Me, hey, can I ask something? Have you ever looked at Tasha's spending, Marcus? I'm scared to... Me, I think something's off. We didn't talk more, but the next morning, I got a call from an unknown number. Sky, a woman's voice said, "I'm Melanie Hart. I'm an accountant. Marcus asked me to help him go through some things. I know this is awkward, but he wanted you to see what we found." My stomach dropped. Found. I sent it to your email. It's about the money. I opened the file on my laptop and stared. Everything I feared was true. There were copies of Tasha's account history, charts, dates, annotated screenshots. My payments lined up perfectly with her splurges. My $1,500 for Mira's school tuition used at a designer handbag site. My $3,000 for Belle's asthma treatment spent on an online crypto platform. Most heartbreaking of all, the $500 I sent so Jaden could attend art camp never made it there. She never even signed him up. There were even texts Melanie included. One from Tasha to a friend read, "Sky's like a vending machine. Mention the kids, and boom, money." Another, "It's not like she has a real life. Helping me is her personality." I closed my laptop and stared at the wall. For a long time, I didn't feel anything. Then suddenly, I felt everything. Humiliation, rage, sadness, all crashing at once. She didn't just lie to me. She used me, mocked me. I thought of all the times I said no to myself so I could say yes to her. The secondhand coat I wore while she bought new boots, the weekend gigs I took to afford Belle's inhalers, the vacations I didn't take because the kids needed help again. I felt like a fool. But here's the thing about hitting bottom, it gives you something solid to push off from. So, I texted Marcus again. "Me, I need to meet, just you. Marcus, name the time." We met the next day at a coffee shop near his job site. He looked rough, dark circles, shoulders hunched. "I should have told you sooner," he said, eyes low, but I didn't want to believe it either. "You knew." I started noticing things. Packages arriving. She said it was business stuff for the kids, but then she'd leave town with her friends and lie about it. I felt bile rise, so the kids don't know. Jaden might suspect something. He asked why he couldn't go to camp. Mira, I don't know. She's withdrawn. Belle's too little. Do they think I walked away? She told them, "You chose not to come this year." I shook my head. I left gifts on the porch. Well, he blinked. They were gone when I got home. She said she never saw them. I closed my eyes. I couldn't cry again. Not here. "I don't want her money anymore," he said quietly. "I'm looking for a way out." "You're divorcing her." "Working on it." I nodded. Then I'll help the kids. But through you? No more through Tasha. He looked relieved. Thank you. Back at home, I made a decision. One I should have made years ago. I wasn't going to let her rewrite the story. I pulled out a journal and wrote a list. Block Tasha on everything. Write a statement for mom and dad, just the truth. Set up a separate fund for the kids with Marcus as the only contact. Start living my life again. That night, I sat at my drafting table and opened a blank canvas on my tablet. For the first time in months, I created something for me. No deadline, no invoice, just me and the screen. I drew Jaden's face, then Mira's, then Belle's. I wasn't just their ATM, I was someone who cared. And Tasha. She might have spent my money, but she'll never get my peace again. A week after my meeting with Marcus, I mailed the letter to my parents. Not an angry rant, just the truth. I told them what Tasha had done, how the money I sent for emergencies became spa weekends and crypto bets. I included proof screenshots, account histories, even the bank trail showing the tuition I covered never reached Mira's school. I didn't demand sides. I simply said, I'm stepping back for good. Not out of spite, but because I can't keep bleeding for people who call me a nuisance. I ended with one sentence. If you ever want to talk, I'll listen, but I won't chase your love anymore. I didn't expect a reply. So when a letter came from my father 2 days later, I stared at it for hours before opening it. Sky, your mother and I failed to see what you were carrying. That's on us. We let Tasha paint you in cruel colors, and we stood there. I'm sorry. We're sorry. We love you. We want to do better. My hands trembled as I read the final line. We miss our daughter. Tears came hard after that. The pain I'd bottled for years cracked open relief, grief, fury, but also something tender. Something like hope. I didn't reply right away. I wasn't ready, but I folded the letter and tucked it into my journal. It wasn't just an apology. It was a doorway I could step through when I was ready. Meanwhile, things at Tasha's house unraveled fast. Marcus texted that he'd spoken to a lawyer, quietly. He was filing for separation. He'd found a small rental and was moving out after the new year. The kids would stay with him part-time. He asked me if I could still help with boundaries. I agreed. But only for the kids. On Christmas Eve, I drove across town and met Marcus in a parking lot near his new place. It was dark and quiet. He opened the trunk, and I handed him 3 wrapped boxes. A watercolor set and sketchbook for Jaden, a stargazer lamp and books for Mira, a plush bear and handmade blanket for Belle. From you, I said, not me. Let them feel your stability. Marcus's eyes welled. I won't forget this. I'm not doing it for you, I said, smiling, but I'm glad you're trying. He hesitated. There's something else. I froze. What? She knows you're not backing down. She's getting nasty. Nastier. She told my mom you tried to sue us, that you forged the bank stuff to embarrass her. She's telling everyone you ruined her marriage out of jealousy. I shook my head. Classic Tasha. But my mom, she believed her. Until I showed her everything. Now she's Team Sky. We laughed, and it felt weird but good, like sunlight after a storm. But the storm wasn't done. A few days into January, I got an unexpected knock at my door. Tasha. She looked rough, messy hair, dark eyes, still in her leopard print coat like armor. I'm not staying, she said. I just came to say what I need to say. I didn't respond. I leaned on the doorframe, blocking her from stepping in. "You won," she said. "You took everything." "No," I said quietly. "You gave it away, piece by piece." "You think you're so righteous," she hissed, "but you were always judging me, acting like your money made you better." My jaw clenched. I never wanted to be better. I wanted to help, until helping meant losing myself. She blinked. For a moment, her rage flickered into something close to sadness. "I needed you," she whispered, even if I didn't say it right. "You didn't need me," I said. "You needed someone to blame. You got my love and my savings. You just didn't want my truth." She looked away. Her hands curled into fists. "I hope the kids are okay," I said finally. "They deserved better from both of us, but I won't be a backup plan anymore." "You really think you're better off without us?" "I know I am." She left without another word. Weeks passed. I started painting again, not for clients, but for myself. Abstract shapes, colorful lines, emotions that had no words. I signed up for a weekend retreat out in the hills. Just me, my paints, and strangers who didn't know my scars. It felt like breathing again. Then one day, in late February, I got a text. "Jaden, hey, Aunt Sky, can I call?" I said yes. He called right away. "I finished the sketchbook you gave me." "That's amazing." "I drew you in it." "You did?" "Yeah, you were smiling. You looked light." Tears sprang up again. Damn, this kid. "I miss you," he said. "I miss you too." "Mom said you hate us now." I don't, I just needed space." "I think I understand now. Dad said sometimes love means saying no." I smiled through the ache in my chest. "Your dad's a wise man." He laughed. "He said you helped him be brave." "Well," I said, "that makes two of us." Spring came slowly, but it came one day at a time. The snow on my balcony melted. The light stayed longer. My heart started blooming again in the little ways. I planted herbs. I hosted a paint night. I danced alone to music that used to hurt. Tasha never reached out again, but I didn't need her to. Jaden sent me a picture on the first day of March. It was a painting, his version of me and him on a bench, birds flying behind us, a flower growing between our shoes. He titled it, "Not broken, just blooming." It took my breath away. And I knew. No matter what I'd lost, something beautiful had taken root. Spring peeled back the cold, like layers of grief I hadn't realized I'd been wearing for years. By mid-March, I had my first full night of sleep in months. No dreams of arguments, no reruns of slammed doors, just quiet, just breath. I had started building a life outside the wreckage. My art began selling again slowly. Then suddenly, a cafe owner downtown asked to display 3 of my pieces. I painted a mural at a women's shelter, something abstract and bright, the kind of color I hadn't felt in a long time, and people started noticing. But none of it compared to the quiet connection that grew between me and the kids. Jaden called every week. Mira started sending short, shy texts, mostly book recommendations or questions about school projects. Belle didn't call, but Marcus said she carried the bear I gave her everywhere. That was enough for me. Marcus stayed respectful. He didn't lean on me, didn't ask for more than I offered, just updates. Gratitude, stability for the kids. I'd expected chaos after his separation from Tasha, but instead I saw growth. Not fast, not perfect, but real. He even invited me to Belle's 4th birthday. I didn't say yes right away. I sat with it, Not because I didn't want to go, but because I needed to go for the right reason. Not guilt. Not duty. Love. I RSVP'd yes. I showed up with a handmade book for Belle pages, filled with her name in bubble letters. Animals she loved, blank pages she could color in. Marcus greeted me with a hug that didn't feel awkward. The kids screamed my name like I'd never left. And Tasha wasn't there. I don't know where she was. Marcus didn't offer, and I didn't ask. But for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like a guest in my own story. A few weeks later, I got a voicemail. Yeah, it was my mom. Sky, honey, we saw the mural. It's beautiful. We were proud, and I thought you should know. She paused. Your father and we've been talking. We want to make things right, but we don't know how. If you're open to it, we'd love to see you. No pressure, just whenever you're ready. I didn't cry this time. I just listened, then replayed the message once more, letting the sound of her voice wash over me. For the first time, her words didn't ache. They felt like a bridge not perfect, but possible. In early April, I went to visit them. I didn't bring gifts. I didn't bring spreadsheets or apologies or expectations. I just brought myself. My dad opened the door. His face looked older than I remembered. Softer, too. He pulled me into a hug without speaking. My mom stood behind him, wringing her hands like she didn't know what to do with them, but her eyes were red. I missed you, Sky, she said, voice cracking. I nodded. I missed you too. We didn't talk about Tasha. Not then. We made tea, ate blueberry muffins. They asked about my art, my classes, my herb garden. It felt almost normal. But a good kind of normal. One where I wasn't trying to buy their approval or patch over someone else's mess. One where I could just be. Before I left, my mom gave me a folded note. I read it later in my car. Sky, we got it wrong. We let Tasha's chaos become our lens. We ignored your exhaustion. We were complicit in making you the family ATM instead of the daughter you were. We don't expect forgiveness, but we hope for it. We're proud of you. We see you now. Love, Mom. It wasn't perfect, but it was honest. And honesty, after everything, was a kind of peace I never thought I'd get. A month passed, then another. One night, I got a call from an unknown number. I almost didn't answer. But I did. Sky. It was Tasha. I sat up, bracing. I'm not calling to ask for anything, she said quickly. I know you wouldn't give it, and I don't blame you. Silence. I wanted to say, you were right, about all of it. I didn't say anything. She kept going. I messed up. I ruined a lot. I don't expect you to forgive me, but I'm trying to fix things with the kids. That's all I care about now. More silence. And I'm in therapy, weekly, real therapy, not the journal for 3 days and call it healing kind. I let out a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. Good, I said. That's good. I don't want anything from you, she said. I just thought you should know. I'm not proud of who I was. There was a pause. But I loved you, even when I was awful, and that doesn't undo the damage, but it's true. I said the only thing I could. Thanks for calling. Sometimes people change. Sometimes they don't. Sometimes, all you can do is protect your peace and let the rest unfold. I didn't invite Tasha back into my life, but I didn't slam the door either. I just left it there, closed, but not locked. These days, I wake up and stretch under soft morning light. I brew my coffee slow. I paint when I feel like it. I write when I don't. My loft is no longer filled with financial statements and guilt. It's filled with color, warmth, quiet joy. The lavender shortbread I used to bake out of stress, I make it now just because it tastes good. Sometimes I bring extras to Jaden and Mira when we meet for lunch in the park. They always eat it too fast. I'm still Sky, but not the version I used to be. Not the fixer. Not the fallback. Not the silent sponsor. Just me. Sky, 37, painter, sister, aunt, woman who learned to say no without apology. And it's enough. Actually, it's more than enough.